Hello and welcome to The Buck Stops Here. I'm Ankita Mukherjee. On the show tonight, join Vishnu Shom as he flies in India's home-built Tejas fighter, the first time any journalist has been given a sortie in India's Top Gun. That's coming up a little later in the program. But first, our big debate tonight. In the last 3 days, as many as 6 soldiers have been killed in 3 separate encounters in Handwara, Bandipore and Kulgam in the valley. Worryingly, there are reports of these terrorists getting cover from civilians who've actually attacked army men while these encounters were underway. The Prime Minister and the Army Chief led tributes to the soldiers today, but the Army Chief also talked tough, saying it was local support to militants that was leading to higher casualties. He also had a warning that local boys would be treated as overground workers of terrorists if they continued to obstruct operations. He also said if you hold Pakistan or ISIS flags, you'll face consequences. We asked tonight, civilians helping militants, is this the new challenge for the army and the government? We are now joined on the program tonight from the BJP, Sambit Patra joining us and Lieutenant General Atta Hasnain, former GOC of the 15 and 21 Corps and former military secretary with us. From Srinagar tonight, we're joined by the editor-in-chief of Rising Kashmir, Shujat Bukhari. And from Jammu, commentator Sushil Pandit joining us on the program tonight. Lieutenant General Hasnain, let me begin with you. 82 personnel killed in 2016 in Jammu and Kashmir. In 2017, it looks as though that figure is most likely going to be even higher. The Army Chief today linking higher casualties in the forces directly to growing local civilian support for terrorism in the state. Just how big a worry is this going to be, and how should the armed forces now deal with civilians who obstruct their operations?
Thank you very much for that question, Ankita. First of all, let me express my deep regrets for the loss of lives among the security forces. They're all good Indians who have died for the nation. But having said that, yes, very true, in the last 3 days, the ratios, what is called the kill ratios, have gone very skewed. And last year, we suffered heavy casualties too. Now, what is happening at the moment in these encounters is not something completely new. It started in 2015, more in South Kashmir, where we found that wherever there were terrorists who were stuck in hideouts, the local people were bringing out flash mobs with the help of blaring microphones from the mosques and through social media, bringing them together there, creating a stone pelting kind of a situation, making sure that our troops could not draw up closer to the objectives, forcing the CRPF to undertake measures outside the cordons, and as a result, diverting the attention of our troops. And this was causing a worry at that time. It did not lead directly at that time to more casualties, I would say. The casualty figures in 2016 are due to many other reasons. The adoption of Fidayeen tactics, that is suicide kind of attack tactics, and the selection of convoy
but sir, now that the Army Chief is directly linking this to civilian support for terrorism, what's the next course of action for the Army?
Right. The first thing is that the Army Chief is 100% right. It is a time that at last we had to draw a line, what is called a Lakshman Rekha. Because this year we are seeing that the attempts by the mobs and the rabble-rousers has become much more intense. At all 3 locations in the last 3 days where it has happened, they have come to the fore and they have diverted attention and prevented our troops from being able to have the focus which is required in such operations. What the army needs to do is to send out stellar warnings and perhaps now get on to the job of information operations, where they have to send out adequate warnings to the public, to the separatist leaders, that enough is enough. We are not going to sit back and take these kind of casualties
both to the public and to separatist leaders. Well, right, we take your point about that. Shujat Bukhari, you've actually reported on how civilians have been actively rushing to encounter sites to help militants, and you feel that public anger in the valley is unlikely to subside anytime soon. Is the Army Chief's tough stand today only going to complicate matters further? Or is it going to act as some sort of deterrent, as Lieutenant General Hasnain seems to hope it will?
Yes, Ankita, you are right. You are right in the sense that the army chief should not have gone so far, in the sense that it looks like that he has declared a war on population, for that matter. So I think when we look at this kind of a situation, as General Atta Hasnain rightly said, that it started in 2015 when people started rushing to the encounter sites. And it's certainly, I mean, it has increased and it has intensified in 2016, and now we have seen it in Kulgam and yesterday in Handwara as well, and Bandipore also. I think it's a worrying situation, and everybody will have to ponder over it. But I don't think that the approach that we are going to, take on you, we are going to do this and that, I don't think that it has worked in the past, and it's not going to work in the future, because of the fact that unless and until we try to understand the context of why this is happening now, why the people were not actually rushing to the encounter sites 5 years before or before 2015, or for that matter even at the worst time of militancy in early 90s. Why this is happening now? Because of the fact that the absence of political engagement in Kashmir and continuous denial of the fact that Kashmir is a political issue and it needs a political approach. I mean, as long as that continues, I think you will have to see this kind of situation unfolding. And I don't think that by declaring a war like this on the entire population, I mean, if you look at Kulgam for that matter, only on 12th of February when there were casualties on army side as well. I mean, there were more than 40,000 people who actually were taking part in the funeral. I mean, how can you tackle a situation where you have 30,000, 40,000 people? Do you think that you will open fire on them, as, I mean, is being suggested now, if you imply it from Chief of Army Staff statement that we are going to take on you? And I think General Rawat has himself been posted in Kashmir Valley. He knows the situation. He knows the political dynamics of the situation.
To be fair, Shujat Bukhari, General Rawat has also talked about...
I think it will certainly complicate the situation.
Yes, but he's also, to be fair, talked about not killing young men, but trying to bring them into the mainstream. So there is some sense of trying to strike a balance over here. But Sambit Patra, why are we waking up to this only now? Kashmiri youth have clearly been encouraged or felt encouraged to disrupt anti-terror operations ever since the killing of Hezbollah terrorist Burhan Wani in July last year. This is the first time we've heard this problem being articulated so directly and linked to higher armed forces casualties. Where is the army, where is the government going to go with this? And as Shujat Bukhari makes this point, is this situation deteriorating rapidly because of the lack of political engagement in the valley?
No, I would disagree to a large extent, because we always tend to find some kind of excuse for all the wrongdoings. It's not that things have taken a turn for bad now. Even in the yesteryears, when such kind of stone pelting were happening, when people were losing their life, when the overground supporters of terrorists were in fact supporting the terrorists, we had found similar kind of excuses, if you remember, during the previous regime as well. So excuses would always be found, but we have to really come down hard with the fact, as you rightly pointed out, Ankita, that the army chief was extremely candid today. He said that we don't want to fire on people, we don't want to kill them. We want these youngsters to be on the main side of life, but at least I can talk to the parents of the people, saying that please see to it that your kids, your young children, don't go out and support the terrorists in the open. And well, yes, if you hoist the flag of Pakistan, if you hoist the flag of ISIS, if you support the terrorists, we will take stern action. It is candid talk, and it is what was required presently, I believe. And secondly, I believe a mob cannot hold peace to hostage. 30 or 40,000 people can form an ideology, can attend the funeral of Burhan Wani or others, but that does not mean that if there is a mob would hold the peace of this whole country to hostage. That is an ill-founded logic.
But Sushil Pandit, come in on this. Have we as a country just chosen to look the other way? In instance after instance, we have seen these enormous turnouts at funerals of terrorists in the last weeks and months. Why is it that it's only now that we're talking in terms of civilian support to terror?
Ankita, first of all, I would like to join General Hasnain in paying my homage to the fallen soldiers. It is tragic, the loss of life. We've lost several officers and men in the past couple of years. And unacceptable number. You ask an absolutely right question, and I must first of all point out to the very beginning of this. General Hasnain said that it started in 2015. He is absolutely right. In 2015, there was a change of government in the state. This government, from their declared policy of healing, touch and reaching out, started allowing public funerals of militants, both local and of Pakistani origin. That would lead to thousands of them in a frenzied mob, defying curfews and challenging security personnel. And this has taken a momentum, and it has led to a lot of such spectacles where security forces have been challenged. Army, whose presence there was a time was enough to deter troublemakers, are now engaging units who are busy in an encounter. This is the problem, and imagine, even after Burhan Wani's public funeral, these funerals haven't stopped. Nobody has taken lessons. So what has happened is,
but where is the political initiative in all of this, Mr. Pandit? Because isn't it true that army and counter-insurgency groups have been meeting regularly to chalk out plans to deal with particularly this problem, but none of this can be implemented simply because of political reasons in the valley?
Excuse me. A healing touch policy was a political initiative. It was meant to soften militants. What is implicit in the Chief of the Army Staff's statement is that there was indeed given a space. There was indeed created a chink in the standard operating procedure where militants were given opportunity and army's hands were tied behind their back. We must realize and we must acknowledge and we must declare that in Jammu and Kashmir, we are in a state of war, and anybody engaging on behalf of the enemy and aiding and abetting enemy's agents who are militants and terrorists would be treated as militants and terrorists. We've always been making this distinction that they are our boys. The point is, Mr. Shujat Bukhari's perception that when you warn these boys, you are declaring a war on entire population is absolutely wrong. These are a handful of boys who are engaging in a mob with the army. These are not 6.5 million Kashmiri Muslims who are peaceful.
I'm just going to let Shujat Bukhari respond to that because I'm completely out of time on this discussion.
You are actually being very mischievous.
Okay, where do peace initiatives come in, Shujat Bukhari? Respond to the point that Mr. Pandit is making over here. When there's so much skepticism about political engagement itself, skepticism even about non-government initiatives, is there possibility of engagement?
No, there is no, in fact, there is no actually will to have an engagement, number one. First and foremost thing I want to make a point is that army has enough powers in Jammu and Kashmir. I think it has unbridled powers. Armed Forces Special Powers Act covers everything. Number two, as far as the point was made that, I mean, there are a handful of people. I mean, we are tired now of hearing those theories. There are a handful. If there are only handful people, yes, then why in 2016 you had to lock down the entire population of 7 million people for 50 days at a stretch? I mean, if all people here or on that side and this side, then why you have to lock down people for 6 months?
All right, I'm afraid that is the subject matter of another debate, and I will have to wrap this up here tonight. You know, six soldiers have died.
Let me.
Two civilians as well in these.
I mean, there was curfew. There was curfew imposed by the state for 55 days at a stretch.
Yes, okay, so but I'm going to have to wrap up this discussion with the thought tonight. Gentlemen, I'm afraid we're completely out of time.
There was a hartal that was coterminous with the curfew.
Six deaths of soldiers, 2 of civilians in just the last 3 days alone. Every death, every life lost to violence on all sides is tragic, devastates a family somewhere. There are clearly no winners here. We leave that discussion at this point tonight.